What were we like before our brains were collectively boiled by events, whether it is the madness of some relatively recent political decisions or the proliferation of unregulated online propaganda and misinformation? How 10 years ago would we have reported or responded to the horrific events on that train coming out of Peterborough at the weekend? And remember, charges have now been brought, so we can talk about quite correctly very, very few aspects of that now developing case. And we have to talk about suspects until convictions are secured, or suspects singular. And anybody who doesn't understand that is probably listening to the wrong radio programme, but will no doubt be able to avail themselves of all manner of misinformation and prejudice fueling fury online. And I don't know the answer. I'd like to think that the heroism of one of the members of staff would have been even more prominent. I honestly don't know. Who does know? I'd like to think that this man who acted in incredibly quick thinking, the driver, indeed, of the train, the former Royal Navy operative, became a train driver in 2018. It was him that asked for the diversion to Huntingdon so that passengers could get off the train and police could arrest the knife man, the alleged knife man. And you think perhaps that would be the main headline rather than a little insert in the story 10 years ago. But of course, that is not how it works. A lot of the coverage today, once the details have been established, move immediately to the various claims and counterclaims about how the police handle the ethnicity of suspects in major incidents. That's extraordinary, isn't it, when you just pause for a moment to think about it. Police forced to disclose to battle far-right speculation is one headline, and police should have released nationalities of suspects far quicker, says Chris Philp. I mean, there is a lot of competition, but to become the most ridiculous Conservative in the country is clearly a mission that Chris Philp has set himself. The police should have released identity details by now, as they said should happen, and as happened in other recent cases. And inevitably Farage pops up. We need to know who committed these awful attacks as soon as possible. To which one response, I think, would be why? So that people can be encouraged to go and set fire to asylum seeker hotels again, full of people that had absolutely nothing to do with any of these events. Why do you want to know? Because it will hopefully fulfill my deep and abiding hatred of foreigners or immigrants or asylum seekers. Well, what if it turns out to be someone who is none of those things? As, of course, was the case in Southport, when people did set fire to buildings full of people who had absolutely nothing to do with the atrocity. Why do you want to know? Has anyone actually stopped to wonder that? Because what we do know is that police are being forced effectively to disclose the ethnicity of suspects precisely because people like Philp and Farage want to make something of it. But one thing I've noted is that when people turn out to be British, as was the case in Southport and as appears to have been the case over the weekend, when suspects turn out to be British, it doesn't actually change anything. So what does this really achieve? What does it stop people doing? Why do you want to know? Does it hurt more? Does it change the nature of the offence? Do the families grieve less according to the ethnicity of a perpetrator or an alleged perpetrator? It's a funny one. I don't know that they have any choice. They have to, and this is a report from another newspaper, the third headline in the same space, how police sought to quell web speculation. When reports emerged about multiple stabbings on an LNER train on Saturday night, the first question many asked was, is this a terrorist attack? And I don't think you will be cross with me if I suggest some people, perhaps the people who are most desperate to know the ethnicity of suspects, some people seem to really hope that it is, don't they? Have I got that right? Am I going a bit mad? But some people seem to really hope that it is a terrorist attack. Some people, no doubt, will still claim that it was, or that it is. The definition of what constitutes a terrorist attack is fairly clear. But the last time this happened was when a car was driven into a crowd of people in Liverpool. Again, a live and unfolding case. But it ceased to be a terrorist attack, or people ceased to believe it would be, although I'm sure online you can find people who think that that has been misrepresented and misreported as well. But it's a funny one, isn't it? So this is a proper change that has happened in our society. And I think all I really want to do this morning is ask you whether it's a change for good or a change for bad. So when a terrible thing happens, now, the police feel that they have to disclose ethnicity of suspects. In this case, a 32-year-old black British national who has now been charged, and a 35-year-old British national of Caribbean descent who has been released with no further action and apparently had absolutely nothing to do with anything. But the ethnicities are now released. I suppose you have to acknowledge that some people will pick up on the fact that this suspect is black and somehow manage to turn that into racist propaganda or racist embellishment, just as they did in Southport. But, I mean, I think we're all pretty clear on what the word British means. Even the racists will allow black people to be British. It's just English that you're not allowed to be. If you're Rishi Sunak, Suella Braverman won't let herself be English. I'm allowed to be British, but I'm not allowed to be English. So we're all pretty clear on what British means, and yet they feel the need to release the Britishness in order to establish that it's presumably not somebody recently arrived here, or not somebody here having had their asylum application rejected or waiting for their asylum application to be processed. What does it achieve? I wondered after Southport what happens when an atrocity is undertaken by somebody who does fit the template of the racists. Somebody commits a terrible crime who is waiting for their asylum application to be processed, or who is here illegally or irregularly. I mean, who is responsible for that attack except the person who did it? Well, I think in the minds of people like Farage and Philp, unless they tell me otherwise, the desperation to know the ethnicity or the identity details of people in these sort of situations is built upon a hope that you can use it to make a point about lots of other people who had absolutely nothing to do with the events. Listen, I often say to you, I hope I'm wrong. And sometimes I say it in a vaguely performative way. And sometimes I say it knowing that I'm not. But today I really hope I'm wrong. Why would they want to know? Unless, and the police release it to stop lies, but what happens when it's true? What happens when a crime is committed by somebody? I think about school shootings in the United States of America quite a lot, and nobody ever tries to turn that into a political point about the ethnicity of perpetrators or the masculinity of the massive majority of perpetrators. I think latterly there's been an attempt to try and hang it on transgender people, but goodness knows, unsurprising though that is, even by the standards of that discourse, it's pretty desperate when you look at the historical statistics. This desperation, is there any more to it, I wonder, than an attempt to conflate the guilty with the innocent? Is that all it is? 0345 6060973. Is it just to appease racists? To appease people who, if somebody of a certain background commits a crime, are desperate to claim that all people of the same background? It's why that phrase fighting age men has become very popular among the desperately hard of thinking. Why don't they say working age men? And the whole point about the discourse surrounding immigration used to be these people are coming here and they don't want to work. They just want to sign up to our incredibly generous benefit system. Spoiler alert, it's not incredibly generous, but that's never stopped a Daily Mail columnist. And now people who are keen to and capable of working come here, and rather than pointing out that it would be a good idea to let them work, you describe them as fighting age rather than working age. Am I a fighting age man? I'm 53. I mean, in what other context would you describe someone who's 25 as fighting age? A fighting age footballer scored a hat-trick for Carlisle United this weekend. A fighting age pop star has gone to the top of the charts again. A fighting age politician has been elected to the council. I mean, it's nuts, right? Unless you're trying to create the idea that they are all a threat, that they're all a danger, in which case I've got some wonderful advice for you. Try counting. Just do some counting, and then you'll be able to work out exactly what the threat is. Speaking of counting, how many knives do you think were removed from the streets in England and Wales under a new surrender scheme in the last 12 months? Yeah? You're right, 60,000. What percentage do you think knife homicides have fallen by in the same period, the first drop in more than 4 years, in the first year of the current government? Knife homicides have fallen by almost 20%. Knife crime overall has fallen for the first time in 4 years, dropping by 5%. Oh, load of woke nonsense. People just don't bother reporting it anymore. OK. Well, let's look at the NHS hospitals in England and Wales and see if the number of admissions for knife assaults has gone down. Because let's say you're not going to support it, or report it, you're probably going to want to get treated, right? That's down by 10% as well. And yet, every time I open my newspaper or turn on my radio, there's someone from the United Arab Emirates, where Sharia law is literally real, claiming that London isn't safe. Or there's someone from America, where school shootings and street homicides are endemic, claiming that London and the United Kingdom isn't safe. It's insane. So, 2 or 3 questions for you. Why are people so desperate to know the ethnicity of suspects? And I think there are only really 2 answers to that question. Or rather, I think there's only one answer. And it's people like me who are prepared to articulate it, because we're not part of the phenomenon. Why are people so desperate to know the ethnicity and background of a suspect in a terrible crime? Because they're hoping to make points about people not involved in the crime who have shared characteristics with the culprit or the suspect. And of course, if you're one of those people, I don't know that you're going to say that ever out loud. Some will fall off the tightrope, but most of them will pretend that they're just asking questions, or they've got legitimate concerns, or that the security services are keeping things from us to whip up paranoia, bogus victimhood. I wonder what we'd have done 10 years ago. Focused on the victims and praised the heroism of the train driver. I don't know. I suppose if Irish people got caught up in this kind of activity back in the day, whether they had terrorist affiliations or not, it would probably have been reported differently from how it was for British people, or other British people in the case of people from the north of Ireland. I don't know. So why? Why are some people so keen to know the ethnicity? And do the police have any choice?